And joining us now on the Comcast Business Hotline, a guy who brings it all the time. Whether he was playing 10 years in the league, bombing threes, whether he was starring for LaSalle, or whether he's killing it on ESPN as the #1 NBA analyst, he is the great Tim Legler on the Comcast Business Hotline. Legs!
My man.
There
What's
he
up,
is.
man? How are you, brother? I hope you had a good holiday weekend, man. Hope you had a good
Didn't
holiday.
do anything. I was going to knock for you. I didn't know if you were down the shore, though.
I was down the shore. It was actually one of the best 4th of July weekends as far as weather that I've ever seen at the Jersey Shore. So we had a good time down there.
Good for you, my brother. You deserve it. Good for you. What are you going to do with the NBA bubble? How's it going to work?
Well, for me, you mean?
Yeah, will you be up
affected?
there? Yeah, will you be up
No,
there?
I'm not going to be there. And actually, they have made a determination that they don't even want anybody still having to travel to get and then participate in coverage from the studio in Bristol. So they have come and actually they have set up shop in my home. So when this thing starts up on July 30th, the coverage that I'll be giving for all of my Sports Center hits and whatever they want for the morning shows and everything else will actually be coming from home. So it's going to be a little bit different coverage for me. I'm not sure yet if they have figured out a way for me to do some of my, video breakdowns and touchscreens and stuff, because obviously that's something you need to be there in the studio to do. So we're still working that out. But as far as my hits for all of the Sports Center pregame, postgame coverage, that's all going to come basically set up right in my house. They
That's
came
awesome.
and put a nice production, really high-level equipment at home. They've been doing this for a lot of people, obviously, so they've got the procedure down pretty much down pat now to come in, and then they check it out, see how it looks, and by July 30th, I'll be up and running, ready to go.
That's awesome. I'm going to come over and heckle you.
Yeah, you come. Listen, you come over. There's like a recliner right there, off camera, and you can sit there and give me thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah, I'm doing that one day.
If I miss something, write it on a whiteboard and hold it up
Yes.
for me, and I'll get to it.
I'll be your cue card guy.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I need, a cue card guy, always.
For people who don't know, Legs and I are neighbors. I live around the corner from him. I can walk through his house. The guy bring the kids over all the time because he's Coach Legler to them at the Legler camp, and so we go over and wave at Legs' house. So before we get to that, I do want to ask you about your camp, by the way. Before we get to that, I got to ask you, we've been debating all day the rotation for the Sixers. And how do you see – let's look at their starting five, and then how do you see the rotation?
Oh, man, that's a good one because, look, this has been leading up to this. This is obviously far more difficult than anything that I would have had to normally do going into a season. When you're starting to look at a roster coming into camp, you know who they signed over the summer. You're heading into camp. You have a pretty good idea how it's going to work out, and you can make predictions. This is going to be strange because this is such uncharted territory. And coming out of something like this, by the time they start playing, you're talking about 4-month layoff, 4.5-month layoff from playing competitive basketball, and then getting back into it. So the question is going to be, how deep are these teams willing to go in terms of minutes with their starters? And that's going to affect, particularly in those first 8 games, when the Sixers aren't in threat of or in danger of not making the playoffs. They're not one of those teams. They're in. It's just a matter of where are they going to end up. So every team is going to handle those 8 games differently, depending on the condition their guys are in, how many minutes do they want to play, and that's going to dramatically affect how deep you want to extend your rotation. So it's really tough to predict how exactly the minutes are going to break down with teams' benches because I'm really curious to see how these coaches and organizations handle their starters depending on the situation you're in and how much your seeding could change over those 8 games. Now the Sixers have a really easy schedule. So I don't think there's maybe as much thought process going into it for them. They want to pace these guys, I think, a little bit, Anthony. I think that's going to affect how many guys see significant minutes early, and that could affect if somebody plays well during that time. That could affect then how much you give them once you actually do start the playoff rounds.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We were talking playoff rotation. I prefer Thibault to start. Because I like the fact that we go back to defense, and early on I want Embiid and Harry and Tobias to touch the ball a lot. And I like starting with defense, and I think he'll be refreshed after hitting that rookie wall. And then I would bring Horford and Shake off the bench with, you throw in your Burks and you see Korkmaz if he's hot, he gets more run. But I would kind of do it like that. I was curious, playoff-wise, from a strategic standpoint, how would you look at it?
Yeah, I like that as well. I think they've kind of already made the determination, but with Horford, I mean, you kind of saw how that was going, and I think that'll continue to be the case. I like Thibault as a starter as well because one of the things I've always been a big proponent of, and even all the years I coached, I had a kid specifically kind of remind me of Thibault that played for me to fill a role where at the start, it's really nice at the start of games to have someone out there that is going to be out there as a top shelf defender because sometimes you have a hard time finding rhythm early offensively. And so it's nice to be able to get stops until you find your rhythm and start making shots. And for me, I think Thibault, having a guy like Thibault out there who doesn't need a lot of touches offensively, he's going to compete defensively at the start. It helps set your energy. It helps set your tone for how you're going to play until you find your offensive rhythm. So I agree with you that I think that would be their best starting lineup.
And we've been talking, the great Tim Legler with us on the Comcast Business Hotline. We've been talking a lot about Shake and in fact, Jimmy Lynam real high on Shake and what he could be. I'm curious, can he be a Lou Williams light type? And again, not now off the playoffs, but can you see him projecting at some point being that guy?
Well, he certainly has that kind of game. I mean, you look at the run that he had going on. Unfortunately for him, the timing couldn't have been worse to shut down the season. When you look at the last probably 7 to 10 games that he played prior to the league getting suspended operations, this is a guy that has that kind of ability because he's got so much like off the dribble with his herky jerkiness and his ability to get his own shot. He's not the type of guy that you have to worry about a specific system or running stuff for. He just is a natural scorer. It comes very easy to him. The way he was shooting, the three ball, I don't know if he can, shoot those kind of percentages. I mean, he was shooting the ball out of his mind from the three-point line over that stretch that we saw right before they shut it down. I don't know if he can, do that at that level. Is he a 40 to 45% three-point shooter? I'm not sure about that. But there's no question that he's a guy that can now, you play him 20, 25 minutes a game. This is a guy that's going to get you on a bad night. He's going to get you like 12 to 15. I think on a good night, he gets really cooking. He can carry you offensively because he's got that kind of ability with what he can do off the dribble. And he's certainly a confident enough and competent enough shooter that he can get it going either way. And now you've got that instant offense off your bench. So look, Lou Williams is a name that'd be a great name to live up to. I mean, those are big shoes to fill if you want to start making those kind of comparisons because Lou Williams is one of the best we've ever seen do it in this league off the bench. So this is a much smaller sample size for Shake Milton, but in terms of the comparisons of their game, I think it's valid.
So, Legs, how do you size the Sixers up? Going into this thing, it's such an unknown, and, we've been talking about, obviously, Milwaukee. It's a tournament style, so it's going to be, there's no crowd, no fans, no home court advantage or disadvantage. How do you kind of size the Sixers up, knowing all these factors?
Yeah, man, look, they're a fascinating team for me. I think, and I was talking about them last week with somebody and said, I don't recall ever covering a team. In all the years I've been at ESPN, it's my 19th season. I'm finishing up. My 19th postseason I'm about to start. I don't recall ever remembering a team like the Sixers in this way. Their floor to ceiling is the greatest spread of anything I've ever seen. Like I'm not going to be shocked if they lose in the first round. I'm not going to be shocked if they're playing in the finals. I don't know if I've ever said that about a team before going in. And a lot of it is because obviously they were, the best in the league at home. I mean, it's the team almost unbeatable at home, completely opposite on the road. 19 win differential between home and road. I mean, there's nobody even close to that that's going to be playing in the playoffs. It's one of the greatest spreads you're ever going to see from a team starting a postseason that you actually consider a threat. So for me, I say, well, okay, well then let's look at this now. Neutral court, no environment, no energy. So okay, that's a big loss for them in terms of what they had at Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
Because they're 29-2, unbelievably comfortable there. But on the road, now we have to get into what are the reasons they were bad on the road. All right? Is it because their leaders are younger guys and they didn't have that focus and that killer instinct on the road for whatever reason? If that's the case, that's a scary proposition because for all intents and purposes, they're going to have to find that now in every game. Like they don't have that home crowd now to just automatically kick that adrenaline in and get their focus laser sharp. That's not there. These are all going to be like road games, but with no environment whatsoever. So is that a scary thing? Now, if you say, well, on the road, for whatever reason, they get their cages rattled a little bit because they're going into these buildings and, they're a team that they're going to get the best crowd because they're an exciting team to watch. They got star players, and they just didn't react well to the vibe in these opposing arenas. Well, then you say, well, that's great then. They're not going to have to deal with that. Is that the problem? Is that why they struggled on the road? So we're going to find that out. But there's no doubt they've got the talent on their roster to, at the minimum, make a run to the conference finals. But, Ant, are you going to be shocked if they end up as the sixth seed and they go home in the first round in a loss to the Boston Celtics potentially, or maybe the Heat if somehow they manage to catch? But I will not be stunned by that, particularly how different this is going to be for all of these teams. Because I'm telling you right now, some of these teams going down there are going to be flat at the start, and they're never going to have a chance to recover from it because they just, for whatever reason, the circumstances have made them a different team. Philly could be one of those teams.
Did you see, we're talking to Legs on the Comcast Business Hotline, did you see a lack of focus on the road? Sometimes they wouldn't be ready to play. Like you could see sometimes distractions, which I guess is part of being a young team. And, Horford was going through his own assimilation issues and the whole thing. And sometimes to me, they lacked some focus on the road.
I think for me, more than that, what I saw out of them was a team that really did not respond well to adversity.
Yeah.
They were a team that you could see the shoulders drop. You could see the lack of communication walking off the court when Brett had to call timeout because they just gave up a 12-2 run on the road on a game that they were in, or a game maybe even they seemed like they had control of. And now here comes that 12-2 run, that 16-5 run. Here comes a timeout. I never liked their body language leaving the court. And the way that they looked even in the huddle when the cameras would get in there and you would just look at, guys not making eye contact with each other or with Brett. And I would say to myself, that's a team that just has no idea how to handle adversity. And the reason for me was there was no leadership voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's what the reason that great teams can find a way to get themselves through those kind of moments is because they've got some sort of leadership voice in there that's able to get guys, look them in the eye, and get them back where they need to be mentally to understand we're going to come out of this now, and we're going to now go make our own run. We're going to stop the bleeding right here, and we're going to go out, and we're going to turn this around, and here's what we have to do. Specifically, here's what we're going to do different that was just going on for the last 5 minutes. These are the adjustments. I don't see that look in their eye when they're walking off the court when something's gone wrong. And to me, that mainly points to leadership amongst the players. There's only so much coaches could do in that situation. It helps, look, if the team completely buys into the message, that's definitely going to help when they get over to the sideline and now a guy's going to talk to them that they absolutely have faith in. Yeah, that helps. But it helps even more to have guys walking off the court with a little bit of a nod, almost like, okay, all right, we took that one. Now we're good. But I don't see that out of them. I see guys walking over, not speaking to each other. They look defeated. Yeah. And then they come out of that, and their opponent feasts on that. And now, before you know it, boom, it's another road loss. So for me, that's what I saw more than anything else. More than like not being ready at the start, it was at some point on the road, you're going to go through one of these tough stretches. How are you going to stick together through that? And I don't think they do a very good job.
You know what? Now that you're saying it really crystallizes. Because I was in one of the trips I was on was Dallas, Indiana. It was a Saturday night in Dallas, and they played well in the first half, and then there was this stretch in the third quarter where it really got away from them, and they wound up losing a tough game where they should have won the game. And then it was the same thing in Indiana on the Monday night where they were leading the whole game, and then the Pacers go on a run. It was like early in the fourth quarter, and they could never get it back.
Well, I don't remember as much the Indiana game. I remember vividly the Dallas game because I was with a group of friends, and I was out that night, and I remember we got to a place specifically because we got to be there by tip, got to watch this game, wanted, see Luka the whole bit. I'm looking at that right now, and you're 100% right. So the score is 75-71.
Wow.
With 11 minutes left in that game, 75-71. Then the rest of the way, Dallas outscores them 34-20.
Yeah.
Down the stretch.
Yeah.
Brett takes multiple timeouts, trying to figure anything out. But they're right there. And look, it's going to happen to really good teams sometimes. Look, teams, it's not like they're not getting paid too. And Dallas is a good team, and they got, talent. They got a great coach. Like, you're going to run into that on the road. But I think I remember that game. It just seemed like, man, the wheels you could see the lug nuts like loosening up. And all of a sudden, before you know it, those wheels are off that cart. And now you got an 18-point road loss on a night when it looks like you're going to win a game in Dallas. So that's a pretty good example. And I think if you went back and looked at, I think they got 24 road losses, something like that. If you went back and looked at all of those, I think you can, from a video perspective, we could go back and we could find different segments in that game that, to me, it turned against them beyond a point of no return because of their reaction to something that was going on the floor.
We're talking to Legs on the Comcast Business Hotline. Now, I'm excited for him, and I wouldn't be shocked either way, like you said, but I'm expecting them to make a run. And one of the things is just the organic nature of the playoffs seems to fit their style. And I'm hoping that there's the bully ball thing comes to light, and they play and they thrive because of the way they're built, the way the game slows down and you defend every possession.
No, I completely agree with the way that they can beat you if they so choose, because it does lend itself to the playoffs when the possessions become much more meaningful. You expect the scores to get a little bit lower. You want to get quality shots, and if you want to run your offense for long stretches through a guy like Joel Embiid, who's the most dominant low post player in the league, you're going to get really good. And Ben also attacking, getting high quality shots, being at the rim. You can do that with Horford when he's on the floor without Embiid. You can throw the ball into him and play a certain way. So I agree with that. My biggest question about them, and I'm fascinated to watch, and it's not just them, there are other teams too. What is it going to look like when they have to come out onto the floor and generate all of their own energy? Nothing will be created for them.
Wow, that's so true, man.
Nothing is going to be created for them. And look, they're not the only team in that boat. I mean, the Bucks, I think they're 28-3 at home. I mean, they're just about as good as Philly at home. The difference is, I look at a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo, and is there any doubt in your mind that he's going to be going 100 miles an hour when he hits the floor? It's just that's like the only thing he knows.
Yeah.
Like every night you watch him, it's the same intensity. That's not the case necessarily with the Sixers. So what is it going to be like when they run onto that floor and there is nothing in there to create a vibe? So it's all about self-generating that. I've said it all along since this whole thing, shut down, and then I finally, you find out, okay, this is going to happen. Here's to me the biggest factors: who's going to come out, coaching, and you're going to see, I think, more of an absolute mandate that you get great coaching in this situation than you ever have. And I think a lot of these guys that have won before and have done things with teams deep into the postseason, I think they have an advantage. Some of these teams, so coaching huge. I think. The leadership of your stars, enormous, because you've got to make sure that these guys are ready to go, and that's going to come from your best players setting the tone. They can't be flat. They can't be aloof. They've got to be locked in and making sure that other people are locked in. I think chemistry amongst the team is huge. If you go down there and feel connected, and this really matters to you, and you've got a really close-knit team, and that's what I'd put the Bucks in that category, that's a major advantage. And then the fourth thing is depth, because you're going to need some depth in this. First of all, you don't know if everybody's going.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen when you get there. You don't know who's going to be in better shape than other guys. You don't know what the coaches are how they're going to view, wanting to play their star players. So depth, huge. So depth, coaching, leadership of your star player, chemistry. Those are the four things that I think we're going to really learn a lot about these teams down there.
Love it. Great stuff. Legs, hey, real quick, what's the latest on the camp?
Yeah, look, we're set. We're ready to go August 3rd to 7th. It's 4 weeks from today. We're obviously, this is a fluid situation because we're still dealing with the state and trying to figure out what they want us to do as far as, indoor contact sports and camps and things. But we're ready to go. I mean, TimLeglerBasketballCamp.com is the place to go. I'm proud of what we built this up to, man. 13th year doing this camp. I think it's the best camp in the area. High-level teaching camp, and we're accepting registration still. It's 8 through 16, basically, boys and girls. So we have all different levels and age groups. Here's one thing I will say. We don't know if at some point they're going to tell us only certain numbers can be in the gym. If that's the case, we're going to go with what we have. If you want your kid to come, get them signed up. If for some reason this all turns and they decide we're not going to allow the camp, everybody will get a full refund. So, but if you want your kid to come, if you're even interested, you need to secure a spot, because we have a feeling they're going to limit us in ways they haven't in the past, and that might mean that, unfortunately, we're going to have to tell some kids no. So go to TimLeglerBasketballCamp.com. All the information is on the website.
It's the greatest. My kids go. They will be going this year. They loved it. They got great. They had so much benefit from it. It's a great camp. Legs, I love you, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks, Ant. You got it, man.
See you, buddy.
Anthony Gargano, weekdays from 10 to 2.
Comcast Business Hotline.